On this recording, we're going to take a look at the GDPR settings in ADAPT. The first thing I wanted to show you is within a candidate and contact record, you have the icon here that links to several GDPR specific workflows. The first three workflows here, any user can run in the system. Doesn't matter what permissions you have. But anything from restrict processing all the way down here, you need to have been given specific permissions in the administrator's profile or admin profile to be able to go in and run these workflows. So I'm going to show you how you can do that in the system. So to access the admin profile, so we also call it the ADAPT Manager's profile, you can go up to your settings cog here, go to profile, and everybody has this general view. What you need to do is go into this one or this one here, either of those, click on apply, and then you'll come into this screen here. So if you're in the manager's profile, you'll see it looks the same all the way down to here, but then you have your additional tabs or menus here on the left. So we're going to go to agency structure here, go to home, and then over on the right, you can select your different record types in the system. So if you want to give a specific user GDPR permissions, you would click on employee here, you'd put in their name, and then you would click on to find. And you can see they will then appear. You then click onto their name, and it takes you into their record. Now from the drop down next to employee, you'll see at the very bottom, there is a page in here called permissions. If you edit on this page, all new users will have these as blank. So they'll have no permissions. What you'll need to do is come in here into that line, click on the black file, and select the permissions you want to give that person. And then OK. And it will drop them into these fields. So we're looking at the GDPR compliance admin one. That's a specific one you need to select to give them permissions for this. And then you would save on the right hand side, and then they could run those additional workflows. The other thing I wanted to show you in here is if we go to home and go to an office and find one in here. So I'm going to click on find to show mine. Then you can click onto a specific office into that record. And then in the drop down here, you can go to the document library. And you'll see there is a folder called consent request. So what you can do is any users that are linked to this office, when they run the consent or permission request workflow, you can run it that when the email pops up, any documents that are attached in this folder will automatically attach to that email. So you'd go into here, add the documents in, and they will automatically attach to that workflow. So you'd need to do that per office. The next thing I want to show you is going into the admin one here and go to application settings. From the options at the top here, we do have in there a GDPR specific page. So we're just going to run through the options in your system. Now the first one is deletion date control. So what it's saying is whenever you run any GDPR actions where it's going to stop processing, and that means delete, it will give you a date in there that after you've run that action, the candidate record or contact record, after 28 days, they will hard delete from the system. So there is no way of retaining that information. So 28 days later, they will fully delete. This can be changed. That is our default in the system. But if you want it to happen sooner, when you run that workflow, then you can change that in here. Your subject access portal URL should already be in there. If it's not, please let client services know and they can give you further advice. You'll see in there, and the next section is years to keep assignments for. Again, we've got a default in the system as 3 years. So this might depend on employment law or other laws that you're working with. So it depends how long, since when you're putting someone in a booking, how long do you want to keep that record on the system for? So if you want it to be anything different, please let us know. We can change that in the system. Just to make you aware, if the candidate is currently in a booking on the system and you try and go and restrict them or delete them, it will come up with a warning that you can't do that unless they're unbooked from that process or that assignment. If they are then unbooked, you can, after the overnight run the next day, you'll be able to then run that GDPR workflow, but it will still keep the assignment after that for the amount of years in this field. The next is sending GDPR failure notifications to whom. So who in your company is dealing with compliance and GDPR, that side of things. So you'd put in a specific user, their email address in here, so their work email, put it in so that if when you go and run GDPR and if you run right to be forgotten, and if anything fails at all, it doesn't work for any reason, which shouldn't be the case. If that does happen, it will send an email straight away to the user that's been put into this field here. If you keep getting failure issues, please contact your advisor or your administrator or speak to client services. Now here we've got an option to enable override on batch e-shots. And it's defaulted to no. So what that means is in every record on the candidate side, when you add a new candidate to the system, it will be defaulted to are they happy to receive e-shots, and it will be defaulted to no, because we're going cautious along with GDPR guidelines. If they've given you permission, they're happy to receive emails from you that aren't necessarily linked to a specific job they're applying for, then you can go into the field and change e-shot from no to yes. So that's what that's linking to. Now, when you go and run a search in the system and you get a list of candidates, you can, from that search, run a batch option where you can send an e-shot out, so an email basically, to multiple people at one time. Now, what will happen is if any of the candidates in that list has an e-shot field defaulted to no, then it won't send an email out to that person because they've not given permission that they're happy to receive those. There is an option in here that you can set to yes, that when you then go and click on that, it will actually override whether they put yes or no and still allow you to send out that e-shot. So that's something you can choose to put in the system. You've then got consent retention period in there for 2 years. So if you're running GDPR on the consent approach, so you're asking for consent from a candidate, then we've got something in there where you can go and report that after 2 years, it will tell you anyone that's coming up to expire their consent, so that you can then go and refresh the consent, check with them they're still happy to stay on the system, and then run that through. So you can see our default linking to refreshing consent is defaulted to 2 years. Again, in here you can see you can change that to a much shorter period or longer if you wish. But there's been no specific number of years. A guideline's been given of 2 years. So if you've been given additional advice or other legal advice, let us know and we can change that in there for you. So once you've done those, you can then save those settings in there in the system. So all your settings are in the Adapt Manager's profile, so you can go in there, set up the system how you want it, and then work through from there.